Hello, world. Welcome to PonderCast episode. My name is Seth Ponder. This year is almost done. We're almost to summer, which means the summer of e-learning conferences is happening all over the state of Indiana. So, there's two things I want you to do before you watch the rest of this episode. First, smash that subscribe button. Second, check the show notes and descriptions below and register for EdTech in the Bend, South Shore e-learning conference, and your favorite e-learning conferences. And now, let's watch this episode with Ken Shelton. I've got a new friend with me, Ken Shelton. He'll be coming to a state near you. I met Ken back at ICE, Indiana in November. I'm excited to have him come back to Indiana, but he's not only coming once, he's coming a couple times this summer. So be on the lookout for him. Ken, how
That's
you
right.
doing? Where are you from? And what are you doing these days?
So I'm doing good, and I get to go back to the Hoosier State 2 more times this year. I'm thinking I should look for getting a home somewhere like in the Indianapolis area, since I go to Indiana so much and I love going out there. You know, I can't afford Carmel, but I can afford Indianapolis. But no, I'm doing good. I'm based out here in Los Angeles, and yeah, I'm excited. Like I said, you and I met back at ICE, Indiana, and I've been quite a few places around the state, and it's great to go and chat with educators in your state. And I actually, it's a funny story, but I had an opportunity to have a nice conversation with Dr. Jennifer McCormick last year in June, and she was amazing. So, great experiences. Indiana can't get rid of Ken.
Yeah, and that's great. You know what? There might be some other people moving out of Indiana because there's this mayor in South Bend down the street from me. He's trying to run from some bigger office. So
yeah, he's making a name for himself, and yeah, he might not be there. Might not be there too much longer.
yeah, so maybe there's a house for you here in South Bend. Hey, so I'm gonna throw 5 questions at you so everybody can
Yep.
get to know you a little bit better. So here we go. Number 1, what's your favorite color?
It depends on my mood. I would say, though, in general, I gravitate towards any shade of blue.
Okay, what was your first job?
My first job was cart retrieval at a membership department store here in Southern California that doesn't exist anymore.
What is your favorite app that you're using these days?
Instagram.
Number 4, if you had a superpower, what would it be?
The ability to manipulate time.
Oh, all right. To slow it down more so, or speed it up?
All of the above. Go forward, go backwards, slow it down, speed it up, manipulate time.
When we were talking, you said that you played football at UCLA, right?
Yes, I did.
All right. And so, we're from the South Bend area with Notre Dame, and we've got some football here in the state of Indiana. So what's your favorite team, or who's your favorite team? Pro, college? I'm guessing we know the college.
Well, of course, it's got to be the Bruins. I mean, granted, they're not doing so hot, but that's my school, that's my team, that's my squad. I'm gold-blooded, as we like to say. I don't really have a favorite NFL team because I used to like the NFL. I actually don't really care for the NFL anymore for a number of reasons. I would say the most important being the fact that it's come out more and more and more that player safety is not as much of a priority as I think it should be. I have a couple of former teammates that probably are suffering from conditions consistent with CTE. So, it's interesting. I want to say there was at least one of my former teammates that played for the Indianapolis Colts back in the day. He was a tight end. But, as much as I love football, my perspectives on it have shifted over the last several years, seeing all that. But, I'm still a UCLA Bruin fan. And, like I said, as far as the NFL goes, remember, I'm in LA. We didn't have a team for the longest.
Right.
So, it was kind of like, what team do you think you like, or what team would you like to like? And, I gravitated, between the Raiders, the Steelers, and part of it, honestly, was I liked teams, or I at least was pulling for teams that I had former teammates that either coached on or played on.
Those of you guys who are watching are seeing Ken in his car right now because he's at soccer practice right now. Like all good dads and moms these days. And so you're coming and to all over the country to inspire, motivate, educate, and create. One of the things I love is the mindset, right? We got
Yep.
to start shifting mindset because we don't know where our students are going to be. You know, these jobs that our friends have right now weren't created when we were in high school. And we don't
Correct.
know what our students are going to have. One thing you talk about are the 3 E's. Can you explain the 3 E's and the mindset to us, please?
Yeah, that was in my TEDx talk, which is, you know, as time goes by, it's getting older and older, which I'm hoping to get an opportunity to do a new TEDx talk on areas that I think actually are even more important than those. But the whole concept around that was the 3 E's, which I used the engineer, the entrepreneur, and the oh man, what was the third E?
Explore.
Explorer. Thank you. See, that's how old it was. But it's all around, you know, if you think about the mindset that it takes to be an explorer, as far as like, you know, risk taking, exploring the unknown. You know, it's tied in with inquiry, it's tied in with discovery, it's tied in with all the things that you're saying. I'm not going to allow things that I don't know to be an inhibitor for my growth. And then with the engineer, it's around the engineering mentality of, you know, I've got to create something, and I know that there's a high likelihood that what I create is going to have to go through a variety of, or excuse me, varying degrees of modifications, versions, and so on and so forth. So it's kind of like kind of aligned with like the design process, where you create a prototype, you test it out, you find the flaws, you fix the flaws, you test it out again. And that's honestly some of the protocols I know for friends of mine that are computer science engineers, where they do a lot of coding. And then the last one is the entrepreneur, which the entrepreneurial spirit is around trying to discover, you know, things that haven't been done before, trying to solve problems that haven't been solved before, and looking at ways to not only be creative in your solving problem solving, but also creative in your solution. You know, I always say that you can look at two things. You can be problem oriented or solution oriented, and entrepreneurs, ideally those that are successful, tend to be both, because they identify a problem that exists, but then their idea or their thought processes around solving that problem creates the solution as well. So those are like thematic things that I would love for, you know, teachers to think about when it comes to the learning experiences that they design for students. That are you encouraging risk taking? Are you encouraging exploration for alternate paths for achievement and learning? Are you allowing for students to essentially do things that are not necessarily within the confines or the compartmentalized mechanisms that exist in many of our learning spaces now?
Yeah, and I think that's one thing that my students have a really hard time doing is when I teach engineering at my school and I say, you know what, I don't have all the answers. And I have these problems in a book and I have, you know, these story problems, but I don't have one set of answers. And they have a tough time like accepting that. They're like, well, how do you not know? I'm like, well, we're here to learn together.
Exactly.
And the other thing is I like to tell them, okay, here's how I did it. But if you can find a better way or a faster way, please share that with me because I want to learn just with you. And so, but they've been trained so long in school to go direction 1, 2, 3, 4 and just get through it. And I'm just like, no, like, yes, that's school,
Exactly.
but come on, like, explore, do that.
Exactly. I mean, ultimately, honestly, that's one of the conditions, status quo conditions, is part of the school game. You know, I'm going to tell you what to do. I'm not going to show you the path and allow you to walk down the path. I'm going to tell you what to do. I'm going to tell you where the path is. I'm going to tell you how to walk down it. And those students that understand that, you know, the school game is a set of rules, and if you follow the rules, i.e., you're compliant, you increase the likelihood that you will be successful. But that's not that is such the opposite of real learning.
You talk a lot about equality and access. And at our school district, we have about a 70% free and reduced lunch. And so, how do you deal with um, just a bunch of variety of students and getting success from all of those students, whether it's students with free and reduced lunch or diversity of all kinds?
So it starts off with access, and ultimately my perspective, my encouragement, my urging, all those things are around ensuring that students have access. Because ultimately, if you think about it, digital technologies, and I know a lot of educators know this, when you have access to digital technologies, it democratizes information, and then ideally it's used in a capacity that, is something that I believe I even shared at ICE Indiana this past fall, is that, you ensure that if every student has a voice, every voice is heard. And so that ties in with the equity piece, because if we are if we are cognizant of, respectful to, and encouraging of students to bring their whole selves to the classroom, bring their own identity, bring their own mechanisms for learning, utilizing thought processes that they have identified to be beneficial and successful for them that may not necessarily fit with the mainline stream of thought. If we allow for that, and it requires the use of technology, we then will have what I would call the right conditions for equitable learning environments that are also inclusive. And I know that that's not easy for a lot of teachers to do, because there's a variety of things that can come up between, what kind of access do you have? How reliable is it? How do I get to know students? What if I have large class sizes? But, honestly, ultimately with that, I always encourage teachers to say, look, nobody goes into education to cause harm to kids. And so if you go based on that foundational purpose and understanding, then all the other stuff will begin to fall into place. Because I don't believe that the curriculum is more important than the relationships that we built with students. And a big part of student success is, how do they feel when they walk through the front doors of a school? And if they don't feel that they are welcomed, if they don't feel that they matter, if they don't feel that their contributions are critical to the learning for themselves and their classmates, then they're not bringing their whole self to school. And then that decreases the likelihood of them being, what we would identify as successful.
I love how you talk about technology and you talk about school culture and just walking in the front doors. Like getting a high five from a principal or selfie pictures with your principal can totally change culture. And that, yes, taking a selfie picture is technology, but it's like the easiest form of technology.
I was just going to say, I saw not too long ago, and I'll have to find it and send it to you. There's been formal, peer-reviewed, published research that demonstrates a direct correlation on the positive impact it has on students when a teacher greets them at the door.
I believe it.
Oh yeah, I did that. I thought it was great. I love doing that.
I have a tough time when they all come in really fast, because I try to say their name as they come in instead of, hey, how you doing? I try to get their name, but when 4 or 5 of them are coming in, I'm like, oh gosh, I got to think of these names so quick.
Yeah, and it's even that, I mean, I used to do that as well when I was in the classroom. And the cool thing around that was, number one, I made sure that I correctly pronounced every single student's first name, which, I had students where the teachers would change their name to something that was more easily pronounceable for them, rather than actually taking the time to learn a student's name. And I just know that even something as simple as that can make all the difference in how a student feels when they walk through the front door. It doesn't even require technology.
And that's not technology, no. But if we're going to talk about
No.
technology, what would be one maybe easy technology that you would encourage teachers to use, and maybe like a technology that teachers that aren't so tech savvy?
So I would say there's a few things, and I really don't want to. I wouldn't want to leave it to one singular platform, but I will say that there's a number of platforms that allow for students to make their contributions that can be seen and heard by the teacher and their classmates. So, like two of the platforms I always recommend to teachers are Padlet and Flipgrid. Kids love doing visual stuff. We all know they got their phones. They're tethered to their phones, and they want to see how they look. They want to see how their friends look. They want to get pictures. They want to tell stories, whether it's Snapchat or Instagram. So why not take advantage of that and utilize those same behavioral patterns in the students within the context of what they need to learn? And more importantly, use that in a capacity like an alternate form of assessment. I think anything that gives the teacher the opportunity to see into the mind, if you will, of every student by utilizing something that students already generally like to do, that can help. Now, not every student will like it, but that's no different than saying that every student's not going to raise their hand if that's the only way you allow for a class class discussions. So I think that your higher likelihood of successful use and repetitive use on any platform that gives students the ability to be seen and heard.
Not every kid's going to like a worksheet either. So if you're meeting them where they're at,
Nope.
that's a good start.
I didn't like worksheets when I was in school. You want to know the funny thing is I shared it in a recent keynote where I remember in school when my math teacher would say to me, you can't use a calculator because what are you going to have a calculator with you at all times when you grow up? And of course I have my phone with me.
My 10-year-old, when he was doing another worksheet, a math worksheet, had 100 problems on it. He started complaining on number 90. I don't want to do it. Blah, blah. I'm like, buddy, just finish it, man. And he turns and he goes, Alexa, what is blah times blah? And I just go, well played, young man. I know you got 90 out of 90, right?
Yeah, exactly.
The last 10, and Alexa's not going anywhere. Like, that technology is going to be here.
Exactly, because nowadays, I mean, between Alexa and a Google Home, it's like, why are you asking me Googleable questions? And two, stuff is boring, so I'm just going to figure out another way to get it done, and then I'm going to go and do the stuff that I know is fun and that I want to do.
But what do you say to maybe the doubters or the people that are saying, we need less technology in the classroom because the kids are on these all the time? What do you say to those parents or teachers?
So actually, I've had those conversations, and I do think there's a balance between screen time and non-screen time. I do think there's a balance, but when I hear the arguments around the kids shouldn't be using technology, I always go to the fact that technology and technologies in general are such an intricate component to our daily lives. There is nothing that I can think of that I do now that doesn't involve either a computer chip or something that is identified as technology. And so, I do think it's important to utilize it in a capacity that's truly meaningful and purposeful. But I do also think that there is a need for a balance of screen time. And in fact, one of the recent books that I read and that I recommend to parents is called It's Complicated, which really does a great job of giving a social construct to the reasons why so many kids gravitate towards the use of their phones to connect with their classmates. Because in many cases, or in most cases, they aren't going and playing with their friends in the street like I did when I grew up. So that social time is going to be replaced, and utilizing their phone and whatever mechanisms or platforms they use on their phone is likely to serve as the replacement of that time. So for your listeners, they could find me on my website, which is kennethshelton.net. That has links to the Twitters, the Instagrams. I use both of those for different purposes, but I use those quite heavily. That also has my calendar. I get to head out your way next month. I'll be with the folks over in Ham on the western part of the state, northwestern part of the state, before I go to the northeastern part of the state in August. So I'll be out there. I'm also speaking at an event in Houston, Texas, and then also in Sumter, South Carolina, and then I'll be at ISTE. And then in July, I'll be in Arizona, Alabama, and then I'll be out there in South Bend. So I got a number of things leading up to it, but I'm excited about all of the above. For sure.
I am excited to see you for so many reasons, but more so, it's May and I am still in my sweatshirt. You're in Southern California. You better bring that sunshine by August, or
I'll do my best.
All right, man. We look forward to having you in South Bend at EdTech in the Bend. Can't wait to see you. Hope all is going well between
Likewise.
now and then. Thank you so much for being on here, man.
And thank you for having me. Can't wait to get into South Bend. And remember, you promised me a quick tour of the campus of Notre Dame. So
that's right. We'll take you all around campus and all around South Bend, man.
That'll work. I can't wait. Looking forward to it.
Thank you very much.